He wants to make sure that he advertises the devil. He's working for the devil. He's advertising the devil. So when you advertise for the devil and you're a celebrity, children and adults look at the celebrity status, and that status lure children into their world, and the children have a desire to be like them. So that means mimic them, wear what they wear, act the way they act, say what they say. Now, viewers, if celebrities say that wrong is right, the children out there are going to believe them.
Pastor Gino Jennings' sermons often deliver a fervent critique of contemporary cultural trends, addressing a range of issues he perceives as indicative of moral and spiritual decline in society. His commentary frequently focuses on topics such as the normalization of non-traditional lifestyles, the rise of provocative and explicit content in entertainment, and the increasing use of controversial imagery, including satanic and occult symbolism. Rooted in his interpretation of biblical teachings, Jennings frames these developments as evidence of societal departure from divine principles, urging his audience to resist these influences and adhere to what he sees as the unchanging standards of righteousness outlined in Scripture. He often speaks out against societal shifts that promote non-traditional lifestyles, explicit and provocative content in media, and the growing presence of controversial symbols, such as satanic and occult imagery, in mainstream entertainment. His messages extend beyond specific issues to address broader cultural movements that, in his view, undermine traditional values and stray from the teachings of the Bible. Grounded in his interpretation of Scripture, Jennings calls for a return to what he believes are the timeless principles of holiness and righteousness, urging his audience to stand against these influences and remain steadfast in their faith amidst a rapidly changing world. His critiques resonate deeply with those who share his perspectives, while also sparking significant discussion and debate in wider cultural and religious circles.
There's a homosexual rapper. I figure some of y'all will know. Lil Nas, homosexual Nas, gay Nas. He flaunt. I was told he made a video, and last week I was in a barbershop, and just so happened, me, a Sunni Muslim, a Hebrew Israelite, all of us was in there together. And we all was talking about it, and the barber said, I heard about it, but I didn't see it. So he put it on. And I heard about how he made mockery of God. And this whole video was blasphemy. Until when he had it on, even the Sunni Muslim said, turn it off. He said, man, turn it off.
Key themes and arguments. 1. Criticism of popular culture and celebrities. Pastor Gino Jennings' critique of certain figures in popular culture, particularly rappers like Lil Nas X, reflects his broader concern about the influence of what he perceives as satanic and morally corrupting elements in the entertainment industry. His criticism often centers on the idea that such figures are not just promoting controversial art, but are actively contributing to a spiritual decline, especially by endorsing behaviors and symbols that contradict traditional Christian teaching. The Satan Shoes controversy, which involved Lil Nas X's collaboration with the company MSCHF to release a limited edition of modified Nike Air Max 97 sneakers featuring pentagrams, upside-down crosses, and a claim that the shoes contained a drop of human blood.
He loves Satan. I mean, when I say he loves Satan, he loves Satan.
That's right.
So he took a stripper pole look and made it appear as if it was descending from heaven all the way down into hell. Had on boots of a woman that come way up over the knee to the thigh with little shorts to advertise his foolish looking homosexual body. Made it look like wings come from his back so he can imitate the fallen angels. and descended. And before he went that far, first he showed as if it was Satan in the Garden of Eden so he can have sex with him.
Flashpoint for Pastor Jennings and others who hold similar views. The Shoes, released alongside the music video for his song Montero, Call Me By Your Name, featured imagery associated with Satanism, and the video itself portrayed Lil Nas X engaging in symbolic acts of rebellion against religious and societal norms. In one particularly notorious scene, the rapper descended into hell and danced provocatively with Satan.
Making mockery of God putting out the angels, he comes down on the pole, goes into hell, and someone is dressed to look like Satan. And then he gives Satan a lap dance on his private parts.
For Pastor Jennings, this controversy represents not just an artistic expression, but a deliberate attempt to promote Satanism, which he views as a dangerous and demonic force corrupting society, especially vulnerable populations like children. He likely interprets the use of satanic imagery, including the pentagram and references to the devil, as a direct challenge to Christian values. In his worldview, such acts aren't just provocative for the sake of entertainment, they are part of a larger spiritual battle in which public figures like Lil Nas X are agents of evil, leading others away from salvation.
I said if you sue Pastor Gino Jennings, I won't give you nothing. I go to jail before I bow to any human on this planet. Nike, he has sneakers made by Nike, but now Nike is suing him because he got an outside vendor to modify his product. Within these sneakers, the sole is clear with a red liquid and real human blood. First, I'm going to start with the emblem of the sneaker. For you that don't know what this is, the emblem where the tongue of the sneaker is a pentagram. You know what a pentagram is? It is used in satanic worship and in satanic rituals. You got some churches that are actually called the Church of Satan.
That's right.
The Church of Satan. So Satan, this act is a manifestation of the serpent character of Satan being subtle and putting out products that you may join his homosexual behavior. Now, this is his sneaker.
Jennings' interpretation of these events reflects a belief that art and culture are not neutral or merely reflective of societal trends, but instead, they are imbued with spiritual significance. When artists use symbols associated with the occult or promote behaviors he sees as sinful, such as homosexuality, he views them as actively participating in a wider, malevolent agenda. This perspective is rooted in a literal interpretation of the Bible, which condemns both occult practices and homosexual behavior. For Jennings, the presence of satanic symbols in mainstream media is a warning sign of the moral and spiritual degradation of society.
He's so perverted until even the box that the sneakers come in full of satanic emblems and satanic quotations. Someone said, preach the gospel. I am. If you see here, he have what it looked like a satanic demon. An area of the script of the sneaker is the scripture that's written in the book of Luke. that says, I beheld Satan fall from heaven as lightning.
Jennings connects the Satan shoes controversy to his broader narrative about the moral decay of contemporary culture. He sees the promotion of such art as part of a wider effort to normalize behaviors that he believes are not only sinful, but also spiritually harmful. His rhetoric suggests that by embracing these symbols, artists like Lil Nas X are not simply expressing themselves creatively, but are actively participating in a kind of spiritual warfare, with potentially disastrous consequences for their audiences.
You see the pentagram there. He also had the number 666. This is showing more of the box. I want my viewing audience is important. You see this because you parents, I've been warning you. The homosexual community, the entertainment community want our children. So you better be careful what your children buy and what they bring in that house, and make sure that it does not promote evil or witchcraft or Satan.
This belief ties into Jennings' frequent warnings about the dangers of cultural influences that stray from traditional Christian values. In addition to the spiritual implications, Jennings also criticizes the broader societal reaction to such controversies.
They was sold. They didn't even last on a shelf no time. Here's another look at the box. This image supposed to be Satan killing souls in hell.
My Lord.
Isn't that something?
In his view, the fact that these kinds of artistic expressions like Lil Nas X's Satan shoes and the accompanying video receive significant attention and even praise from mainstream media represents a sign of societal complicity. Rather than condemning these actions as immoral, he believes that many in popular culture and media either tacitly endorse or fail to challenge them, further exacerbating the moral decline he perceives. Jennings' critique is rooted in a traditionalist Christian worldview, which is particularly sensitive to perceived moral transgressions in public life.
He's working for the devil. He's advertising the devil. So, when you advertise for the devil and you're a celebrity, children and adults look at the celebrity status, and that status lure children into their world, and the children have a desire to be like them. So that means mimic them, wear what they wear, act the way they act, say what they say. Now, viewers, if celebrities say that wrong is right, the children out there are going to believe them.
His condemnation of Lil Nas X, the Satan shoes controversy, and similar instances of controversial art reflect a broader concern about the influence of secular, progressive values in shaping culture, especially in ways that challenge or subvert biblical teaching. While his rhetoric may resonate with those who share his faith and values, it is likely to be seen as extreme or outdated by those who view such controversies as forms of artistic freedom or social commentary. 2. Homosexuality and transgenderism. He equates transformations in identity, e.g. transgenderism, to spiritual deception, linking them to biblical references to Satan being transformed into an angel of light. Jennings argues that such changes reflect a deviation from God's original design, citing Genesis to emphasize God creating humanity as male and female. 3. The rainbow symbol. He laments the LGBTQ community's use of the rainbow, asserting that it was originally a divine symbol of God's promise after the flood in Noah's time. 4. Merchandise and influence. Jennings describes how products, music, and entertainment are tools used by Satan to corrupt youth. He warns parents to be vigilant about their children's consumption, suggesting that such items carry spiritual consequences. 5. Biblical foundation. Throughout his sermon, Jennings grounds his arguments in Scripture, emphasizing the Bible's authority on creation, morality, and human identity. He interprets passages from books like Romans and Ezekiel to explain the origins of sin and homosexuality as manifestations of Satan's influence. 6. Cultural impact on children. Pastor Gino Jennings' rhetoric about normalizing certain lifestyles in media, particularly those that target children, reveals a deep concern for what he perceives as the erosion of traditional Christian values. His objections are not solely based on the behaviors themselves, but are also a critique of their portrayal in mainstream media, which he believes influences children in harmful ways. He often frames these shifts as part of a broader moral decline, arguing that they represent a departure from biblical teachings on gender, sexuality, and family. Jennings' position on LGBTQ identities, specifically his characterization of them as linked to Satanism, reflects a literal interpretation of the Bible, which he believes mandates distinct moral boundaries. He frequently cites passages from Scripture that he feels unambiguously condemn same-sex relationships and any deviation from traditional gender roles. By equating LGBTQ identities with Satanism, Jennings underscores a worldview in which moral and spiritual purity is threatened by societal acceptance of what he sees as sinful behaviors. This view is consistent with a more traditional, conservative, evangelical interpretation of Christianity, which often emphasizes the importance of maintaining a strict moral order based on biblical teachings. In his rhetoric, Jennings goes beyond a theological critique, implicating broader societal systems, including the entertainment industry, education, and politics. He argues that these institutions are complicit in promoting values that contradict Christian teachings. For instance, he contends that the media's portrayal of LGBTQ characters or themes in children's programming normalizes behaviors that he believes should be discouraged. This, in turn, affects parental authority and responsibility. Jennings often stresses that parents, particularly within his religious community, need to be vigilant and proactive in shielding their children from what he considers moral corruption. His condemnation is also directed at specific figures, both within and outside of the religious community, who he believes are complicit in spreading or endorsing these values. These individuals may include media personalities, entertainers, or even other religious leaders who adopt more inclusive stances. Jennings often names these figures in his sermons, framing their actions as a threat to the faith and moral stability of society. This confrontation with public figures also amplifies his message and draws attention to what he sees as the dangers of compromising on biblical principles. In secular or progressive circles, Jennings' views are likely to be polarizing. His refusal to acknowledge the validity of LGBTQ identities and his association of these identities with Satanism would be deeply troubling to those who advocate for greater inclusivity and rights for LGBTQ people. His strict adherence to a literal interpretation of Scripture is also at odds with more liberal religious perspectives that prioritize interpretation, context, and inclusivity. As a result, while his rhetoric resonates strongly with those who share his theological framework, it can alienate those who reject his fundamentalist views. Ultimately, Jennings' critique reflects a broader cultural and ideological divide, a clash between traditionalist religious beliefs that prioritize adherence to biblical principles and more modern, inclusive values that emphasize individual autonomy and acceptance of diverse identities. His rhetoric underscores the tension between these competing visions of morality and society, particularly when it comes to issues of gender and sexuality. Societal implications. Pastor Gino Jennings' sermons often serve as a focal point for discussions about the intersection of religious conservatism and modern cultural shifts. By directly addressing contentious issues such as LGBTQ rights, provocative media content, and the use of controversial symbols in entertainment, Jennings positions himself as a staunch advocate for traditional Christian values. His emphasis on vigilance, morality, and strict adherence to Scripture resonates with individuals who feel alienated by or disillusioned with contemporary societal trends, particularly those that appear to conflict with their faith. However, Jennings' approach also provokes significant criticism. While supporters appreciate his unwavering commitment to biblical principles and his willingness to confront uncomfortable topics, detractors often find his rhetoric divisive, accusatory, or intolerant. His sharp criticisms of specific individuals and groups can alienate those who view his interpretations as lacking compassion or inclusivity, values that many associate with modern Christianity. This polarization highlights the broader tension between maintaining religious traditions and adapting to evolving cultural norms. From a theological perspective, Jennings' sermons are deeply rooted in a literal and conservative reading of Scripture. He interprets societal changes as a departure from divine law and views his role as a spiritual leader as one of guiding believers back to righteousness. However, this interpretation invites questions about the role of context in applying biblical teachings to contemporary issues, a point of contention among Christians who differ on how to reconcile Scripture with modern realities. In conclusion, Jennings' messages underscore broader cultural and religious debate. How should faith communities navigate the tension between upholding traditional values and engaging with a world that is increasingly diverse in belief and practice? His sermons challenge listeners to reflect on their own beliefs and convictions, whether they agree with his perspective or reject it. Ultimately, Jennings' ability to spark such widespread discussion reveals the enduring influence of religious voices in shaping public discourse, even amidst a rapidly changing cultural landscape.